Hi, everybody. Welcome to the HSA podcast. Today I have somebody new. And one thing about the podcast that I tell people is I'm trying to get the entire vision around. I don't want just trainers. I don't want just coaches. I have players. And today I have somebody new. And as far as I know, you've never picked up a basketball.
I have picked up
You have a basketball?
basketball.
I know you're a cross-country runner. So
Yes.
I know sometimes those worlds don't mix very well, but they should.
Yes.
But today I have Shelby with us, and she is with an organization, Pillars. But real quick, before we jump into Pillars, talk to us who you are and explain to us, where you grew up and where you're from and how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So I have been living in Greenfield, Indiana all my life.
Born and raised?
Born and raised. Yes, Hancock County. Great Braylon Mullins from there. So I started off as a soccer player, and then a senior just kind of saw me one day, and she was like, "Hey, come run track." And so I did, and then from there, I've always been a runner. And typical long distance runner, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We're type A personalities, and so there can be a lot of that mental component. And I'll get more into that as I explain further about who I am and why I'm here. I ran a little bit in college, and then I pursued mental health. So I've been practicing as a licensed mental health counselor for the last 10 years. And really what kind of made me pivot was I started coaching cross country at my high school, my old high school, about 9 years ago. And then COVID hit. And as we know, COVID really took a toll on everyone, but especially that high school age. You're going through a lot of developmental periods around that time. Then you have this disruption in your routine, your schooling, your social life. And so being a mental health counselor that actually worked in a school, I was also experiencing some disruptions. People not coming to appointments because they were virtual, forgetting about appointments. And so I was like, I have a lot of downtime. I really started to notice my passion working with athletes and their mental health through coaching cross country. And so that's where I really pivoted and started to pursue a second master's degree in sports psychology. Went on then to pursue a doctorate, which I just graduated
Doctor.
from. So
Congratulations.
yes. And that's what kind of brings me here, is just that firsthand experience through my own performance as well as the girls that I coach. And so this passion of really focusing on athlete mental health and wellness took off for me around the COVID years.
Let me, first off, I apologize. Well, it should have been Dr. Shelby. I apologize. That's on me.
It's still new for me too. I think I...
And so going on to that, when you were coming up and you were growing up, well, actually, I'm sorry, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's step back from that. Tell us about what you're doing now in Pillars and what your involvement is and what you guys hope to do.
Yeah, so I started working for Pillars Wellness, and it's a mental health company, but they also have these centers of excellence. And these different centers focus on specific areas that need more attention. So there's like maternal mental health, there's first responders, there's school-based, work wellness, et cetera, et cetera. And so I got hired to be the sports psychology lead, and we're really trying to bring sports psychology and athlete mental health support to Indiana. It is a highly competitive field that we're noticing is really involved in universities and with elite teams. It is something that is starting to become more popular within the sports world, but there's still a heavy stigma around it. So what I really want to see is, let's kind of tackle anyone and everyone who wants mental health support as an athlete, but also like, let's kind of bring that support to clubs and training centers, places that wouldn't normally think, oh, this might be a good benefit.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal. I think that it's needed. I think that it's absolutely needed in this world, especially the deeper we get into youth sports. It's much needed. We could jump in that a little bit on that later, but how does somebody, so let's say that you're listening to this podcast, you're watching online, we will put the links and everything in the show notes, but what is the website, and how would, I'm sitting here listening to this, how would I take that next step to get a hold of you or your company?
Yeah, so if you're interested, either like wanting sports psychology services for your team, or you have an athlete that you notice might need some extra mental health support, you can always reach out to the Pillars website. So it's pillarsinspires.com. There will be an information page about the Sports Psychology Center of Excellence, but also a phone number if you would like to get started. Also, feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is sgoble, Goble, at pillarsinspires.com. So I also wanted to specify, because I had mentioned working with teams for sports psychology services as well as athlete mental health. And so there are slight differences there. And I can also work with individuals focusing specifically on the sports psychology side. The difference is going to be teams versus individuals and what that support is needed. So that sports psychology side is really focusing on those mental performance skills, things, psychological barriers that might impede performance. So frustration tolerance, performance anxiety, just, what is it, the yips?
Yep.
Yeah, the yips.
The yips.
Anything that is just kind of keeping that athlete from getting to the next level. Working with teams, we also focus on like leadership, team cohesion, helping with coaching support, parent support as well, because we know that especially with youth sports now, there is so much pressure at those younger ages, and so helping parents to navigate their own emotion regulation, expectations, and also like, what does it look like working with a high level athlete? So that's kind of the sports psychology side. And then that athlete mental health kind of spills over from the sports psychology side, combining with just general mental health. So if we're noticing maybe a student athlete struggling with eating disorders, maybe that performance anxiety is becoming more debilitating and disrupting not just sports, but now school. Depression, burnout, et cetera, et cetera.
I think it's interesting because you've unpacked a lot of stuff that I want to dig into today. And I remember when I was in fifth, sixth grade, my biggest job that I had that my parents were obsessed about was get home on time. That was my only, like, what kept me up at night, like, am I going to get home on time? And I didn't have to put up 30 points a game. I didn't have to be the leading scorer. I didn't have to, nobody was watching me play. Like, I was raised in Europe, and so I have to bike to the local court, and then I would play my parent. Nobody was watching, and then I had to bike home, and I had to beat the street lights. And majority of the time I didn't. But, you know, like, that was my big stress. And now kids coming up, they have to, the social, you just can't wear shoes. You have to wear the right shoes. Mm-hmm. You have to have the right bag, the most up-to-date bag. You have to perform at a high level. You have to go to training. And it's just interesting because I'm just looking at the stress from my sixth grade year to these sixth graders. I couldn't imagine my parents sitting in the car. And my parents never played basketball. And they didn't understand sports. And my dad ran cross country or track for like a week. And so, like, they didn't understand what they even needed to go to. So what are some of the red flags that you see? Let's just say this. I'm listening to the podcast and I have a child that's a fifth grader. What red flags should I look for to say, okay, my child needs mental health and this is what the next step should be?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very loaded question because, again, we can look at that general mental health side as well as that performance side. So I'll focus on the performance side. So let's say you have a youth basketball player and they are becoming increasingly more frustrated if they're missing baskets or they're benched a lot. They're not getting a lot of playing time, lots of crying, emotion dysregularity. And those are going to be some signs snapping at parents, especially if parents aren't coming to practices or watching games. They're really missing out there for multiple reasons, but definitely like not understanding and seeing what's happening on the court, the field, the track versus what's coming home. Withdrawing, a lot of social isolation or withdrawing. Now, with teenagers, you gotta know the difference between what's a teenager that just doesn't want to talk to mom and dad versus like, oh no, this is isolation, this is pulling away, and because those can be indicators of depression and burnout.
Yeah. So you say isolation can lead to depression. Is there any other behavioral signs that they should be looking for?
Yeah, I would see like aggression on the field. More specifically, probably a loss of enjoyment of the sport. And
Okay.
we see that more at those higher levels, especially because kids are starting so early on. And when you start to see your athlete or your child push back a little bit about going to practices, digging a little deeper as to what that is. Because I think sometimes we're also pushing kids into certain sports when maybe they want to take a direction elsewhere.
Yeah. And also, this is a loaded conversation. I'm going to warn you before we get in there. I noticed that I see a lot of parents that are misguided and talking about when is it fun, when does it become work, talk about the parent aspect. And I know something that you brought up, which is a hot topic with coaches, is you said show up to practice. Mm-hmm. And for me, I don't want parents at practice. However, I'm like, well, parents show up to practice. Like, what is the mindset of a parent and where should they be going with that?
Yeah, and I think it's very dependent on the environment and possibly even the sport. So we definitely see with the youth football leagues, parents show up a lot to practices on that, and they could be hit or miss, like you said. But I think for them, it becomes more of a social aspect for themselves too. Parents interacting with parents. When I had the chance to observe unranked, parents were also there as well. So now here, I don't really see the setup working with, like you said, and you work kind of team-based, but also one-on-one. So yeah, like you said, probably not the best idea to have parents here versus like a football practice where there's more spacing.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, what was the specific
You're
question?
Fine. You're fine. No. And that's good because you answered the question.
Yeah.
Let me reframe it in this way. If I'm a parent showing up to practice, should I approach it as I'm the new assistant coach that just didn't get hired? Or what am I watching? Am I watching my kids' body language? Am I watching my kids, not performance on the court, but mental performance of, okay, you messed up, but did you get back on defense? Mm-hmm. You messed up, but how did you bounce back from that? Oh, you messed up and you collapsed. Oh, like what are some things that a parent, how should a parent act in practice? And what are the red flags of like, I'm not being the parent I should?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head of being more of an observer of your child and recognizing, like you said, body language, emotion regulation, team interaction. How much of a team player is your kid being? Are they trying to monopolize? Are they maybe going the opposite direction and they're not being assertive? They're kind of letting everybody else get the ball. So the parent's position should be that of an observer, but also just showing up, being a supporter. That can be so vital to a young child's development when they can know, like, mom is here, dad is here, stepmom, stepdad, grandparents, whoever that guardian is for that child, but knowing that there is that safety net, that home base to go back to.
Yeah.
Because especially when we're talking about young children, they're in those developmental periods of being able to go out and explore on their own, but knowing they can always come back to whomever the primary caregiver is if something goes wrong. And those parents are also a mirror to that child when it comes to emotion regulation. So if they know, like, mom, dad can keep their cool, I can keep my cool too.
Yeah.
So yeah, just showing up, being there, and trying not to criticize. especially in the moment. Like maybe if you guys want to drive on the way back and say, hey, I noticed like you got upset, talk to me more about that, but not going into, I saw you didn't go after that ball. Why are you letting those other kids take over? So it's about how we speak to our children as well.
It's interesting because I'm shifting gears. I'm putting my dad hat on, but I'm also putting my, like, I noticed that there was a kid when he was first on the team. He was aggressive. He was going after the ball. Sorry, coughing. But the mom reached out to me and was like, hey, I just noticed my son is saying some stuff. Nothing bad. But that's when I started locking in on the game. And I'm like, this kid is disappearing. Like, he's purposely putting himself there. And in practice, I'd watch him and he wouldn't take shots. What's a conversation you should have with that kid when they need to not necessarily pick it up, but you see them losing confidence? Like, what's a conversation you would have with them?
Oh man, confidence is probably the top area that we can see performance start to decline. You know, athleticism is definitely important, but some of that can be taught and honed in on. But when we lose confidence, that's really hard to bounce back from. So, and my dissertation was actually heavily focused on confidence with female runners specifically. So anyway, the conversation that you should have with your child, you know, asking the right questions to really get at where that loss of confidence comes from. Because if we can get at the root of it, then we can know what direction to take on how to gain that back. So it can be possibly interactions that they had with their teammates, their coach, their parent. It could be just about resilience. I think that is one of the biggest struggles that I'm seeing, not just with athletes, but kind of this whole this generation across the board, is that, like, I might dig into a controversial topic, but I think we're not allowing kids to fail, and we're not giving them that home base that I was talking about earlier to say it's okay to fail, because this is how we learn and how we bounce back, and building that resilience. And so that's why we're seeing a lot of perfectionism, which then of course ties into that performance anxiety or anxiety across the board with school, with friends, lots of self-consciousness leading to social anxiety. So yeah, just being able to build resilience with your child too is also going to help boost confidence.
You had two talking points that I want to hit on.
Yeah.
The first one, what are specific questions a parent could ask? Like, hey, these are 3 questions that I would recommend. What are they, and what do they look like?
That's hard for me, because like how I approach it would be different from.
Let's talk about it. How would you approach it? What would your 3 questions be?
So I don't even know if I would have like a quantifier of how many to ask. Mostly just starting with those observations of, hey, I noticed you've kind of pulled back a lot in the game. You're reluctant to step up, put yourself out there. Talk to me more about that. Where, like, even if you notice when that happened, I noticed like the last month this has been happening. Did something happen at practice? What are you feeling when someone passes you the ball? And getting more at helping that child to understand their own emotions. The more that we ask those detective-like questions can help the child, or even the individual, because like adult athletes, college age, I know those are adults too, but
young adults.
Yes, young adults. That increases the self-awareness. And so when self-awareness is increased, then they can start doing their own reflection and practice and be like, oh, wait, why did I hesitate to take that shot?
And going back to the first thing that it's going to be long-winded, but I got into it. I didn't get into it. I had a deep conversation with a college coach. We're sitting there. It's late at night. We're just talking and having a conversation. He looks at me and goes, Paul, what is the opposite of success? What is the opposite of your goal? And I was like, well, I mean, I thought about it. I'm like, well, failure. And he goes, no, failure is not the opposite of success. The opposite of success is quitting, because you are going to fail on your way to success. And if you fail and you don't learn from it, then you quit. And that's the opposite. The opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is quitting. And I think that sometimes a lot of parents miss that step of, I mean, my son plays baseball, and I saw it, like, the dad was pitching, the kid goes third, and then he stops and looks at the ball, and the dad just freaked out on the mound, slammed his glove, and like, what are you doing, and this and that, and like, you should have ran third. But then I also put myself in this situation as a parent, and as a fan. I'm looking, and I'm like, the first thing that they say when they hit the ball is, don't look at the ball. Everyone says just run to the base. So he ran to the base, and he did exactly what he thought was the right thing. And then he turns around, his dad coach, which is important, his dad coach is screaming at him. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine how bad that kid felt. Like, here I am, I got the third accomplishment. I'm like, yes. And I'm like, it's not good enough for you. So, like, does that make sense? Like, I'm not going crazy for thinking that, am I?
No. And being able to regulate our own emotions as coaches or parents or an adult that's helping out with the team is important, like I said, because of the mirroring, but also, like, that relationship. We know the coach-athlete relationship is so vital to performance as well. But I think sometimes coaches, there are coaches that are known for just being yellers. You know, we think of, was it Varsity Blues?
Bob Knight.
Yeah. So there are definitely coaches who are known for being more aggressive. And some athletes, that they respond well to that. That's what they need. So remembering that each individual has their own coaching style and preference that works best for them. But then there's the other side where maybe that coach isn't meaning to yell, but they're getting so caught up in the adrenaline. I know myself as a coach in cross country, like, I have yelled before because, like, there's just so much going on. And, you know, even though my intention is, come on, you got this, let's go, it might come across as more critical. And that's not the way that I'm meaning it to be. So I have to be mindful of my own surroundings to make sure that I'm conveying the message I want the athlete to receive.
And I think that the home base that you're talking about is so important, because this is just me as a person. I could be wrong. You're more than welcome to push back. But I think my job as a coach is to be a disruptor. My job is to challenge you. And if I'm going to challenge you, I have to put you in uncomfortable situations. And so if me as the coach is disrupting and throwing things at you, challenging you, finding ways that I always think that I approach it, and there's 4 different avenues to push a kid. You have some kids that are just high energy. Usually just put them in a direction and they'll run. Some kids are very why-based. Like, I have to know why. Some kids are very relationship-based. I'm very relationship-based. And I know that about myself, where if I don't know you and you criticize me, it doesn't mean anything, because it's not. Now, if you know me and you're like, hey, Paul, I'm just really let down, that's when I'm devastated. I'm in tears, like, oh my gosh. And then the other piece are very, I say monetized, but it's also very, they have to know, like, this is going to give me more playing time, more points, more shots, more something. Doesn't necessarily have to be money, but I'm going to get something out of this, which is fine. And I have to find a way to push that button. But if I'm on the court disrupting, and I'm putting you in I think I'm consistently putting people in a fight or flight situation, and then you mentally check out, you go home, you check out, practice is over, you get in the car, and then the first thing your parents do is put you in another fight or flight situation, and they don't have that home base of, I tell people a lot of times of, like, let me be the jerk. Let me be the one you get in the car and be like, man, that Paul's a jerk. I'm like, what? Yes, he is. Oh my gosh, that's awful. Compared to, I'm the jerk, and then you get in the car and now you're the jerk. Like, you're consistently putting your child in a fight or flight situation, which is not a good situation to be in. So as a parent, what are some things that you should be doing to create a safe space, a home base, you said a mirror, for your child, and what does that look like?
yeah, that modeling. So making sure that we're regulating our own emotions, staying very calm, asking questions.
Tone matters.
Tone matters, yeah. So that nonverbal body language as well. So not only tone of voice, but eye contact, just the way that we're carrying ourselves. So, you know, if your face reads, I'm disappointed in you, or you could have done better, like kids pick up on that. So, and yeah, that it's the active listening part that is so important. So if like really hearing and listening to your child as they're speaking, not getting ready to ask the next question or respond to what they're saying, make sure that we're giving them that space to talk, or if they don't want to talk, giving them that space to know, take your time. If you want to come back and talk, I'm here. If not, I'm going to give you that space.
And not just in basketball, but in sports in general. I'll never put a kid in a bad situation. I have a policy here. I can't say no to water. Like, if you want to take a water break, I'm not here to force you to do anything. If somebody asks me, like, hey, it's the last 3 minutes, can I get a drink of water? I'm like, yeah, you can wait. I didn't say no, but I said it's 3 minutes and you can wait. What are some situations that parents should keep an eye on to say that, I hate the word, I feel like it's overused a lot, but a toxic situation? What situations, and this is cross country, track, field, wrestling, what situation should a parent be looking at and say, this is a situation that's not safe for my child and this needs to go?
Are you referring to like with the coach?
Just in general.
In general?
Take that question where you want.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, keeping a realistic head, because I think sometimes we might perceive a situation as being more toxic because, you know, as parents, we do love our children. We want the best for our children. We want them to get as much playing time and have fun. Sometimes parents might think the coach is being more critical of their child than the coach actually is, due to correction, pushing them because as coaches we know what they need to be pushed. So I think trying to first and foremost keep a realistic understanding of what's going on. I don't know how you personally feel about when parents do contact you if they feel like maybe their child isn't getting the most, because I don't think it's wrong for a parent to do that, but again, keeping that realistic understanding of like, hey, you know, I just want to talk more about this. Is there a time that we can meet after practice or a phone call? Being able to get more information if we do think that maybe our child is being mistreated. As far as those observations that we were speaking of earlier, I mean, we know when a coach is like yelling at our kid unreasonably.
Yeah.
I would also be very mindful of team dynamics. You know, do we feel like our child is on the outside instead of being included? And if we notice that, is that a us versus them, or is that actually my child not putting themselves out there? Because that can be the case as well. It's like the kid's the one not stepping up and integrating themselves.
I had a parent come to me the other day, and it was interesting how the question was framed.
Yeah.
And for me, it gave me insight. I didn't say it, but I was like, oh my gosh, like it opened a door that I was like, there's a lot going on behind here. Dad came to me and goes, hey, I see that you lost confidence in my son. And I was like, I was fine with him approaching me. I was even fine with the question. The question itself, though, led itself to, what evidence do you have that I quit on your son? He made it sound like, well, you're quitting on my son. And then I went back and looked at the film and I'm like, well, your son got benched because he stopped playing. He turned the ball over. He showed frustration. He didn't get back on defense. And I frame it as, now if I'm in the NBA, you get a turnover, you're getting benched because those guys are professionals. Mm-hmm. I'm dealing with third graders. I need to give that window of, hey, you know what? Yeah, you lost the ball and I'm fine with you losing the ball. fine. I'm not, but I have to be. But what you did after you lost the ball is what I'm more concerned about than what you lost the ball. And so it's interesting because I had to reframe the question of like, well, I didn't lose confidence in your son. I need your son to understand that I'm fine with you losing the ball, but my expectation is that you get back on defense and you don't pout and wait for the ball again. And to me, the situation opened the door of like, this dad, there's this thing going on in the coaching world is I can't out coach home. Like you have your kid for 23 hours a day. I have your kid for 1 hour a day. What you say for those 23 hours is going to shadow what I do for that 1 hour. So for me, I could tell in the car ride on the way home of like, why did Paul lose confidence in you? And he's going to be like, I don't know. And then he lost confidence. So yeah, that's something I've always said. And this is a serious question that I want you to push back on. I've always believed that a coach can't take confidence from a kid. Like, you can't take confidence from me because I own it. But if a coach can take your confidence and you never really owned it and you didn't put the work in, what are your thoughts on that? And where are you on that comment?
Yeah, I think it's the same sentiment as when someone says, well, no one can make you feel a certain way. And that's true as well. So a coach can't take your confidence. However, they can be an influence on your confidence. Or just like no one can make you feel a certain type of way, but someone's actions towards you can still influence and elicit a certain emotional response from you. So it is like one affects the other, but then what do you do in response to that behavior or interaction?
Yeah. I agree with that. That makes sense. I should probably change my thought a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, because like, let's say you have an athlete that's already very hard on themselves and would benefit from some athlete mental health support to kind of get at the root of that perfectionism, learn how to become more comfortable with making mistakes and building that resilience. So you already have a child that is highly conscientious. And then you have a coach that when that child does make a mistake, instead of being that support and helping them to bounce back, points out that criticism, says they're disappointed in them, benches them, etc.
We talked a lot about the red flags of this is what you should be looking for. What are some of the green flags of like, my child is thriving, they're in a good situation, not to discredit what you do, but maybe they don't need mental health. Like, what are some of the green flags? We talked about this is where you don't want to be. What about where we should be?
Yeah, again, enjoyment. If they're excited to go to practice, they have friends there, a good coach-athlete relationship. They feel like they can go to their coach and talk with them, not only about their performance, but also you spoke of different types of athletes, and one of them being the Y kid. I'm the Y kid.
I can tell. And it was blaring, and just in case you were wondering, it's like you walked in, I'm like, oh yeah, she's definitely Y.
And I try to, when I coach, when I give them a workout, explain to them what, like before they even ask the question, I want to give them the education so they also have a better understanding. Okay, this is the system we're working today. This is why you're getting shorter rest, but longer intervals, or opposite, we're trying to work this system. So you're going to get longer rest, but shorter intervals at a faster pace, et cetera, et cetera. Because I want to build an athlete that is well-rounded, so the more that they can understand the why behind what we're doing, they're going to gain more confidence too. What was the question?
No, you're fine.
Green flags.
Yes,
green flags. So a good coaching-athlete relationship, just a positive attitude overall. They're able to bounce back when they make mistakes instead of taking that as just who they are as a person. So we have that growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is going to be more of that, well, it is just the way that it is, and there's nothing I can do about it to fix it. So they have more understanding of the control that they do have versus the control that they don't have. I think you're going to see lots of green flags, mostly off the court. Like if a student athlete is happy at home and happy on their playing field, that's a good green flag.
This is a situation that I see, and I ran into it a couple times, is that young athletes, they put all their eggs into, I'm going to the NBA, I'm going to be this, I'm going to play in college. And it was shocking because the more I get to know athletes, I'm always trying to peel back layers of like, how's your home life? What'd you eat today? What did you look this? What I'm always trying to dig into, why does this person bring you? Why did your blah, 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 you know what I'm saying? And I'm always watching who's dropping off. And the players that I see sometimes are so heavily rooted in their identity as a basketball player that when they have a bad day, it shakes their entire foundation because they don't have a foundation of a mom or a dad that just says, hey, and I have conversations with my kids all the time. I have 4 kids, and we talk in the car. For example, I'm throwing my son under the bus. Sorry if he listens to this. He's 9, but it'll get back to him eventually. But he was pitcher helper, and the first baseman bobbled a ball, and he took his helmet off, and he was like, ah. Well, what he didn't see was the fact that they tried to stop the play. They had to get the ball back to him, and he had his helmet off and was in his little feels, and they ended up getting 3 more runs because my son wasn't paying attention. And I wasn't mad at him bobbling the ball. I wasn't mad at him. I wasn't even mad. It was more of a stern conversation of, you need to be the one to finish the play, and then you can have your emotions. But to have your emotions in the middle of the play is the part that does that make sense? He had that foundation of me being dad, and that's why I felt comfortable saying it. And I don't talk about baseball very much to him, so it wasn't like it was that big of a deal. But what would you do to a coach that is working with an athlete that has the foundation as a sports related and not the foundation of like, I'm a person and I deserve to be respected and have a good life?
Yeah, that athletic identity that you were talking about, I want to really kind of focus in on that real quick. So, like I said, I went back to school for my second master's degree during COVID, and my thesis really focused on that disruption of athletic identity because of COVID. So when we're not able to engage in our sport, is that foundation of who we are shaken because we have that unilateral identity of, I'm an athlete, I'm a basketball player, I'm a runner, etc. And we haven't developed outside of that. And that also, when we don't have that multidimensional identity, it can lead more to burnout, anxiety, depression, because we're not expanding. So if the thing that we believe that we are, and that's the only thing that we are, something happens to it, whether it be injury, retirement, COVID, it can lead to these more intensive mental health struggles. And so I kind of derailed myself a little bit. The athletic identity, I was talking about, oh my gosh, I had a second vital point to that. I'll circle back. Yeah, I'm sure I'll circle back to it. So, what we can do as parents and as coaches is really, now I remember what I was going to say. So something else to that is, you spoke about youth athletes having all their eggs in one basket. Something that I've noticed, so like I said, I coach for the school that I actually attended and played for as well. And I remember kids being like, we would have awards at the end of the year of who like had participated in the most amount of sports. So they're a multi-sport athlete award. And there used to be so many contenders for that award for 3-sport athlete, 4-sport athlete. That percentage has gone down significantly because we are having children specialize so early on. I mean, we're having 3rd, 6th, 8th graders that are playing only one sport, but they're on X amount of travel teams. They're also coming to, Paul's Shooting Academy. They're playing school ball on top of their travel ball. And so that puts a lot of pressure on that kid at a very young age, and also is increasing that likelihood of not expanding beyond a very specific athletic identity. Also, if we think about just skill development in general, if you're only doing one sport, you're not, like, I'll take running for example. We only run in one plane. So our agility, our multi-planes are underdeveloped, which can also cause muscular imbalances. So again, if we're only focusing on one sport, you're not expanding that identity, but you're also not expanding your skill set. So to answer your question about what parents and coaches can do, I really focus in on, I utilize a foundational therapeutic modality called acceptance and commitment therapy. And so whereas cognitive behavioral therapy is focused more on, let's challenge your thoughts, we're going to reframe your thoughts, we're trying to change your thoughts. And it definitely serves its purpose and has its place. But for acceptance and commitment therapy, one of those foundational aspects is about values. And that's how we develop our identity outside of just being an athlete. What are those things that are important to us, and how can we participate and live through those outside of our sport? The other very vital part of acceptance and commitment therapy, and this goes back to that resilience and that fear of failure that we were talking about earlier, is the acceptance piece. So many times we see kids quit or give up so easily because they don't want to feel that uncomfortable emotion of, what if I fail? They haven't even failed yet. They're so focused on, what if I fail? What if I make a fool of myself? That they don't even try before they've even tried, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I see that a lot. You've hit on a couple different topics that
Yes.
I'm trying to keep my ADHD brain on track and be like, focus on this. What would you recommend to a long-term athlete? And what I mean by that is someone that, and I have kids that do this, and this is my big crusade that I am trying to break, is I had a kid that was on 3 teams this last season, and then the summer he's going to train with me, he's going to do another team, and then the fall he's going to jump on the same team with me again, then he's going to go to the school ball team, and you see that continual cycle. And when I was a high school coach, and even when I played high school, I mean, even winning a state championship and doing all the stuff I did, like, I didn't touch a basketball for like a month and a half after the season. Like, I purposely was like, no, I'm not. I would write things down and I would decompress, but I couldn't imagine getting over a stressful season. And if you're doing it right, it should be stressful. But then jumping into another, like, for me, and I'm not even talking the physical aspect, I'm talking just the mental aspect of like decompressing, allowing yourself to breathe. I tell a story when I drove in New York City for the first time. I remember getting out of the city, and first time I was ever in New York, first time I was driving, and I had MapQuest, which were paper. I mean, we remember MapQuest, but it was a paper that you had to drive, and you had to memorize it, and then you had to turn. And I remember getting out, and I remember my knuckles being white, and I remember like focusing on my breathing, and I was and I was like, okay, get your breathing under control, get your knuckles, release your hands. And I think that's kind of how a season ends. And then you jump right back into the situation. That can't be good for the neuro system. That can't be good for your psychological and your mental health. How do we battle that?
Yeah. So for like cross country and track, we tell the athletes, we want you to take a 2-week break between seasons. And that is for that mental health purpose, but also for the body as well. Like, if you don't have that periodization and that break between, you're more likely to experience burnout, but you're also more likely to encounter, you're putting more injury, likelihood for injury into play. And that's not to say, I always tell my athletes, because as a runner myself, I don't give myself breaks. At least in school, there's like, okay, this is cross country season, this is now track season. Running as an adult, there's kind of no season.
Yeah.
So I don't exactly live what I preach. But anyway, I know telling a runner, don't run, especially for 2 weeks. Now, some of my athletes are like, oh, heck yes, I'm thoroughly going to enjoy this break. But then I have those really high achieving type A's that are like, what? So I Yeah, me. So I make sure to also say, like, you can still engage in something. Like, if you want to go for a bike ride,
Yeah.
if you want to take up swimming, if you want to do like the elliptical, or even just focus more on strength training in those 2 weeks. So it's not telling the athletes you can't do anything, but letting them know it's okay to take a step back from your specific sport for a brief amount of time, because you're also more likely to come back stronger. Now, for some of those sports like soccer, baseball, softball, basketball, where, like you were speaking about your athlete, you know, you're on this many travel teams, you're also coming here, you're doing school ball, really helping them to, one, make sure we're engaging in, you know, activities outside of just our sport. When's the last time you hung out with your friends? Do you enjoy art activities? Are you focusing on getting your license and learning to drive? You know, do you have a part-time job? That's what we really want to focus on with particularly high school age kids, because I think sometimes they're losing their youth because we're so focused on getting recruited that it's just our sport all the time and there's no outside activity, and that again leads to that unidimensional identity. So helping to build your athlete outside of their sport. And again, like, what are the values? Why are you doing this? What is the end goal? Well, I want to get recruited. Okay. You know, in sports psychology, we talk a lot about those process goals versus the outcome goals. When we're so heavily focused on those outcome goals, again, you're more likely to experience burnout, depression, anxiety, because, and again, I'll focus in on running because it's what I know best. If I'm like, oh, well, I need to get an 1835K and, you know, be top 25 in the state, which 1830 is probably not even top 25 because kids are just getting so fast. But, you know, if I'm so focused on numbers and placement, I'm not enjoying the process and the journey of getting there. And I'm also not creating a growth mindset.
Yeah.
So helping the athlete to focus in on those process goals of getting to that end goal.
And it's interesting because everybody has this, and there's nothing wrong with Kobe Bryant's mentality of go, 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 grind, grind, grind. Mm-hmm. However, what people don't understand, and I think that you're going to hopefully agree with this, is that people get so obsessed with, he was a grind mentality. However, a lot of people don't see the other side of the coin with these professional athletes, that they do have the mental health behind them. And this is where you come in and you're so valuable and you're important, because they're trying to do this with puzzle pieces that the puzzle's not all the way put together. To put those puzzles together, you need to have somebody like you on the backside. That something else that people don't understand, though, is that Kobe prioritized his rest. And the professionals do prioritize their rest, and they prioritize their mental health. And I think that you have, it's interesting because everybody gets to the NBA and they're surprised about how lax the practices are. And they're like, I grinded this whole way. And while they were grinding, it was pushed as NBA development, this NBA development. But when you get to that, they prioritize rest. They prioritize healing. They prioritize their mental health of, like, take a step back. And I think if you are going to be a professional at the third grade, you need to have somebody like Pillars. You need to have someone like Dr. Shelbi. Put in those times, those unseen hours where, hey, you know what, I have somebody that I can talk to. And sometimes as a coach, I can't wear the therapist hat. Sometimes as a coach, I'm like, I got to get you to do this. And yes, this is uncomfortable. And then you go talk to them about that. And I just think that, I mean, at least in the professional level, it all works together. Mm-hmm. Compared to the amateur level, which we are in the amateur level, even though we're treating like athletes, we're treating like professionals, that there is that difference that people are just missing. And I think that you're part of the puzzle. I think that, and if I were to throw stones at my profession, we do all the skill development. I don't think enough people dig into shooting. I don't think players dig enough into strength and conditioning, speed and agility. Mm-hmm. And I also don't think they dig enough into mental health. I think the basketball side of, like, oh, we got all the handles, we got all the dribbles, we got all this. We can't shoot, we're not strong, and we're mentally weak. And those are things that I think the mental part is the same as anything else that you can dig into it.
Yeah.
I got 2 more questions for you. First one, you get a 5th grader that comes in here, and it's not just long-term athletes, but let's just say somebody comes in here, they want to figure out how to shoot, they want to figure out how to put it all together, and they come in and they fail right away. What are we doing with that, and what are your recommendations? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, especially if we're getting a kid who they're just picking up a ball for the first time. They're just learning how to run, helping them to understand the journey. And you know, you're not going to wake up and just be great. And again, I mean, that kind of goes even for those top tier athletes. You have to put in the work, and that work is going to come with making mistakes, looking like a fool, failing, so to speak. So kind of putting those expectations up front, helping the child to have realistic expectations of themselves up front, but also letting them know that's okay. Like, this is to be expected.
It's interesting because I played basketball for almost 30 years. And if you tell me something new footwork style, I could adapt it because there's things I don't have to worry about, and I'm familiar with who I am as a player. I picked up golf about 4 years ago. And it's interesting, the reason why, though, is because I want athletes to do this and challenge themselves. But if I'm doing the same thing for 30 years, I'm not challenging myself. Yeah. I picked up golf because it was something new, and I wanted to see how I would react. And my first day back a year ago, I mean, the off season was, I didn't pick up a club, and I know I didn't. I went back and I golfed. I did so terrible. I quit by hole 4. I got in my car, and I literally had tears coming down my eyes. I was a 40-year-old man, and I started my car, and I'm like, oh, this is how athletes feel when they try something new. And I was able to put myself in a 5th grader, and I was like, oh, now it's time for me to take all the advice I give people. I got one more question, and then you're out of here. You wake up tomorrow, and you are the commissioner of American basketball.
Okay.
You have to pass a rule, any rule that you want. And I asked this to everybody. What would that rule be and why? And it has to be followed from, you could pick NBA. I had one person say that NBA guys had to interact with fans. It was mandatory for fan interaction after the game. I had one person say a 4-point line. I had one person say every AAU team needs to have a mechanical coach, running and strength and conditioning person. What rule would you make and why?
Well, I guess as it pertains to what I'm here for.
There we go. You picked up on the assignment.
Yeah, I would say, I don't want to say mandated mental health support, but that can also, like...
You can mandate it. You're the commissioner.
But understanding, because we've seen this when it's implemented in police academies and not academies, but districts, that, okay, we're here, and then those officers never come and utilize the service. So sometimes when we tell someone they have to do something, they just don't want to do it.
That's me.
So understanding that the mental health side is not just you're sitting down with me in an office or via video and we're digging into all the uncomfortable emotions and stuff, which is also very much needed, but understanding that that's also working with the team, working with the coaches. So those sports psychology services can be all-encompassing and individually tailored. That's the other important thing, is what I'm doing with your buddy is not always going to be the same thing I'm doing with you, depending on what your needs are.
Yeah, I love it. Doctor, you did a good job.
Thanks.
You. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. Again, check her out. Check out Pillars Wellness.
Pillarsinspires.com.
Pillarsinspires.com. It's going to be in the show notes.
Yeah.
This is also a service that we're going to start including at the HSA. We're excited about this partnership because it is going to help our athletes. And like I said, we just want a well-rounded person coming out here. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.